Remember how it felt being truly lost in a video game? Not the frustrating kind where you have no idea where to go or what to do next. I mean the good kind. The kind where you're leaning into it, exploring every pixel, because the game's world has you convinced that the next room could hide something incredible. A new power-up, a terrifying boss, a secret that makes you feel like you've outsmarted the developers themselves. If you're chasing that feeling, there's one game that delivers it perfectly. Super Metroid. It's been over 30 years. I keep coming back to it, not for nostalgia, but because it wrote the book on game design where everything just clicks. Today, I want to show you exactly how it earns that reputation, from its opening minute to its explosive finale. Right from the start, Super Metroid does something brave. It says nothing. No tutorial pop-ups. No companion character yapping in your ear. You land on the rainy surface of Zebes, and you're alone. The game just sets you free. But here's the trick. The world itself is the teacher. In the first room, you see blocks that look breakable, but your shots do nothing. You spot tunnels that are too small to enter. Without a single word, the game is planting seeds. It's showing you obstacles you can't solve yet, creating a mental map of future possibilities. And your natural instinct is to go right, and the game lets you. You'll find the morph ball. You'll find bombs, but then you hit a dead end. The only way forward is to go back left to a room you passed 10 minutes ago and use your new bombs there. This moment is everything. It teaches you the core loop of a Metroid game, revisiting old areas with new gear. You feel the revelation yourself, and this philosophy came from the top. Director Yoshio Sakamoto was obsessed with the game's atmosphere. He reportedly filmed a whole mood tape on an old-school VHS just to show his team the creepy, lonely vibe he wanted for the title screen. That dedication to a specific feeling shaped the entire experience. So you understand the loop, but a great game world needs to feel alive, not just functional. And Zebes has a pulse. Each area is a distinct ecosystem with rules you don't just understand, you feel in your gut. Take Norfair. You drop down and the screen literally shimmers with heat. The music shifts to a slow, oppressive pounding rhythm. Your energy ticks down if you stay too long. The area isn't just telling you it's hot, it's making you suffer through it. Then you find the Varia suit. Suddenly, the heat shimmer effect vanishes. The music becomes muffled, like you're hearing it through a protective helmet. The game communicates your upgrades through the entire sensory experience. You don't just have heat protection, you actually feel safer. This is environmental storytelling at its absolute best. The plot of Super Metroid isn't just in the cutscenes. It's in the wreckage at the Ceres station. It's in the rebuilt space pirate halls. It's even in the 3 friendly Etacoons stuck in a pit, who teach you the wall jump by simply doing it in front of you. The world is quietly telling its own story. And all of this builds to one of gaming's most powerful, silent moments. When the fully grown Metroid has you pinned, your energy gone, it stops. It recognizes you. That moment lands with zero dialogue, because the game has spent hours building the connection through the exploration and discovery. You feel the story, you're not told it. Let's talk about the sound, because in Super Metroid, audio is a core part of the gameplay. The soundtrack by Kenji Yamamoto doesn't just set the mood, it defines the psychology of each location. Lower Norfair's theme is pure, unrelenting tension. Meridia's music is lonely and fluid, with a rhythm that feels like drifting in a deep ocean current. And sometimes, the most powerful choice is silence. The wrecked ship is filled with creaking metal and distant echoes, making your own footsteps sound like an intrusion. But my favorite sonic detail is about the baby Metroid. Sakamoto was famously specific about its sound effects. He wanted little noises that could convey emotion. So when it hesitates before attacking you, it makes a confused, uncertain sound. When Mother Brain strikes it down, its cry is a sharp, pained shriek. See, I obsessed over the emotional voice of a creature with no face. I mean, really, that kind of attention to detail is why its sacrifice hits so hard. The sound design carries the emotional weight of the entire climax. A world and soundtrack can be perfect, but a game lives or dies by how it controls. And controlling Samus in Super Metroid feels just incredible. Her jumps have weight. The rhythm of the space jump is satisfying to master. Firing a missile has a powerful, crunchy snap. The controls are so precise and responsive, they just disappear. You stop thinking about the buttons and start thinking with Samus. This perfect control scheme opened the door for something magical, the thrill of absolute mastery. Super Metroid is a legendary speedrunning game for a reason. Techniques like the Mach Ball or early super missiles weren't explicitly designed, but they're possible because the game's physics are so consistent and tight. Players found the edges of the world's logic, and the game is robust enough to handle it. It rewards deep knowledge and creativity. This combination, a perfectly crafted world met with perfectly responsive controls, created a new standard. Alongside Castlevania Symphony of the Night, it truly defined the Metroidvania genre. Developers still study its map design, its pacing, how it uses isolation not as a punishment, but as a tool for immersion. So, why does an SNES game that's over 30 years old hold up so well? It comes down to a single, powerful idea: respect. Super Metroid respects your intelligence, your curiosity, and your time. It builds a world with consistent rules, fills it with meaningful secrets, and gives you the tools to explore it with flawless precision. Every element, the oppressive quiet of the wrecked ship, the weight of a jump, the story told through a silent hallway, works in concert. It's a complete, immersive idea that's executed perfectly. That's why it doesn't feel like a relic. It feels like a benchmark that stood the test of time. What's the one secret or moment in Super Metroid that you'll never forget? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more breakdowns of the games that got it just right, hit subscribe. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
I can't think of a bigger advancement in the history of video games than the jump from 2D to 3D graphics. One of the groundbreaking games that led this revolution was the original Starfox on the Super Nintendo. To illustrate the kind of impact it made, let's start with a quick story. When I was a kid, I would sneak into my older brother's room to boot up his PC and play a new flight sim. Despite wanting to like it, the frame rate was so choppy and the wireframe graphics were so low res, I could barely make out what was happening on screen. I crashed a few times and decided to put the floppy disk away, thinking to myself, man, these 3D flying games really suck. The years flew by, and my friends and I got into 2D side-scrolling and top-down shooters at the arcade. Classics like Galaga and R-Type kept us entertained, but my prior experimentation with 3D games had planted a seed in my imagination about what it would be like to pilot the spaceship through 3 dimensions. I thought maybe someday in the future that experience would be realized, but that the world just wasn't ready for it yet. Fast forward to 1993 when my kid brother unwrapped a new Super Nintendo for his birthday, along with a game called Starfox. At this time, I was still rocking it on my Sega Master System and sometimes hanging out with my friends playing their NES and Genesis. When my bro popped in that cartridge and the intro scene and music came on, my jaw dropped, and I knew that moment I'd been waiting for all those years had finally come. You see, Starfox didn't just take us to new worlds, it changed the game, literally, by introducing 3D polygon graphics into the mix. So grab your R-Wing and buckle up because we're about to dive into how Starfox redefined the shooter genre. Join me as we step into a retro time machine and look back at the immense popularity and lasting influence in this Retro Gaming Boss review of Starfox for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Do you remember your first impression playing this game? How could you ever forget? This game absolutely blew the doors open on what was possible in video games. Instead of just moving your ship across a flat 2D plane, Starfox made space feel, well, like space. With the use of its Super FX chip, you were put into a 3D environment to navigate, where you could move within the confines of the forward-scrolling rails in a way that made the gameplay feel dynamic, fresh, and, dare I say, immersive, in a way that no 2D shooter could match. The world wasn't just a background to move through, it felt like you were actually flying through it. The rings, buildings, spaceships, and bosses had a real dimensionality and depth. The effect was mind-blowing for its time and seemed so futuristic and advanced. It's crazy to think back how when I was still blasting away in 2D shooters, this game came out of nowhere and introduced 3D graphics to the world, ushering in a whole new era of interaction with video games. The legacy of Starfox is due largely to 5 key areas where it made breakthrough improvements over the status quo of the time. The first was its new hardware, with each cartridge packing Nintendo's new Super FX chip, a special geometry coprocessor that allowed for 3D graphics on the Super Nintendo, which was a huge technological leap at the time. This custom-made RISC processor acted like a graphics accelerator, performing calculations required to draw polygons. The game's use of these advanced capabilities was a visual marvel, whether you were battling through the confines of alien worlds or dogfighting in open space. Starfox gave you a sense of scale and excitement that was unmatched at the time. Sure, its polygons aren't as complex or high-res as today's 3D games, but in 1993, trust me, it was as close to the future as you could get, and provided a glimpse of what was possible and could come in future games. The next factor was Starfox's innovative gameplay, which introduced players to the on-rails format of space combat, allowing you to pilot your craft through various missions and environments, while constantly moving forward into the action. The game's thrills, combined with its tight controls, provided an exciting and immersive experience unlike other games at the time. It also featured different viewpoints, either trailing your R-Wing in third person on the planetary levels, or putting you in the center of the action in its cockpit during the space-based missions. The third factor was its memorable characters and story. Compared to the 2D shooters of the time that didn't offer much of a story at all, Starfox featured a brilliant and charismatic cast of humanized animal characters. You played as Fox McCloud, the leader of the Starfox team, including Falco Lombardi, Slippy Toad, and Peppy Hare. Your mission was to take down the evil scientist Andros and his forces. I have to be honest that initially, the characters weren't really to my liking, but then strangely, they started to grow on me in that quintessential and cute Nintendo magic kind of way. There's just something about the characters' personalities and their interactions that have such a fun and pure charm. The camaraderie of surviving through the missions together as a team felt really awesome, especially after taking down one of the massive bosses. The fourth aspect that made Starfox a classic was how it provided you the choice of 3 different paths to play through from the start in Corneria to Venom, the final stage. This freedom was a great contrast to the top-down 2D shooters that took you through the same route every time. The variety in Starfox gave you more reasons to return and explore different paths. The game's branching structure meant that completing it was not a one-time experience, and this really encouraged exploration and replayability. Depending on your route through the game, you'd battle through different missions that had varying difficulty levels. You might have even discovered a couple hidden bonus stages if you knew where to find them. It was up to you, the player, to decide how you wanted to approach it. The final standout feature was the game's groundbreaking use of sound. The music was composed by Hajime Hirasawa, and thanks to his brilliant score, Starfox featured some of the most exhilarating and epic tunes you'd hear on the Super Nintendo, perfectly capturing the high-speed, action-packed nature of the game. The soundtrack ranged from orchestral to upbeat and energetic, to atmospheric and intense. This perfectly complemented the action and visuals. The voice effects, while limited, were memorable and helped bring the cartoonish characters to life. The overall audio presentation and experience in Starfox was a grade A, top-notch perfection of the 16-bit era. Compare that with the often gravelly voices and sound effects in the Sega Genesis that I was used to. This game was really stunning by the quality and clarity of the Super Nintendo's music. It was so symphonic and just made you want to jump into the cockpit and fight off Andros' minions. Let's take a listen. All of these incredible features and the experience they provide made Starfox a staple of Nintendo's lineup, leading to the inevitable sequels, spin-offs, and a lasting legacy across their consoles as a key franchise. Its technological advancements were a precursor to the more advanced 3D space shooters that would come to dominate the genre in later years. The game's innovative graphics influenced the design of subsequent titles, pushing developers to explore more ambitious graphics techniques. The on-rails shooter format was later replicated and some would say perfected by other breakthrough titles in their own rights, like Sylphid on the Sega CD and Panzer Dragoon on the Sega Saturn. In 1998, Star Wars Rogue Squadron on the Nintendo 64 further built upon Star Fox's innovation by letting players pilot iconic Star Wars ships in fully 3D open-world space battles. So to sum it all up, Star Fox was a game that didn't just advance the genre, it redefined it. It took the space shooter and launched it into the third dimension, offering gamers a fresh and immersive experience that felt unlike anything else on the market. Its innovation laid the groundwork for the future of space shooters and 3D action games, and its characters continue to be beloved icons in Nintendo's roster. But that's just what I think. So let me know in the comments below about your experience with Star Fox. Is it still one of the best space shooters out there? If you played this classic back in the day, give me a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and join me for a retro gaming break anytime and anywhere you need it. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out, reminding you to keep it old school and to keep flying high. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Alright, let's talk about one of the coolest comebacks in gaming history. You've been there before, when you pop in a game and within seconds, you can tell it's just something special. For me, and maybe you too, that game was Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo. Now, I'm not just here to tell you it's a classic, you already know that. What I want to dig into is why this game, a platformer about a gorilla chasing stolen bananas, hit so hard back in 1994, and more importantly, why it still absolutely rules today. So stick around, because we're going to look at the tech that blew minds back then, the level design that still feels amazing, and I'll even share one thing that almost nobody got right when they tried to port it later. But first, we need to rewind a bit, because to understand why Donkey Kong Country was such a big deal, you have to look at what Donkey Kong had been up to before this, or more accurately, what he hadn't been up to. See, Donkey Kong was basically in hibernation. After the arcade classic, the big guy was missing in action for over a decade. Nintendo's mascot was Mario. Sega had Sonic, and DK was, well, he was a relic. A fondly remembered one, but a relic. Then, a British studio called Rare, who had been making a name for themselves on the NES, got their hands on some serious Silicon Graphics workstations. You know, the same kind used to make the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. They were experimenting with new 3D models, and Nintendo, who was in a brutal console war with Sega, took notice. They gave Rare the keys to the dormant Donkey Kong franchise, and the goal? Create a showcase that could go head-to-head with anything else on the market. But here's what most people didn't realize. Nintendo was actually a little worried. They saw the early pre-rendered 3D models and thought the game looked too 3D. They were concerned it might feel unplayable, but Rare had a vision and they pushed forward. The result was a graphical style that felt like a quantum leap. Everything you see, Donkey, Diddy, every enemy, every barrel, was crafted as a 3D model first, and then rendered into 2D sprites. This gave the characters an incredible sense of weight and volume that was unmatched at the time. I remember seeing it in magazines and just not believing it would actually run on my Super Nintendo. But here's the trap a lot of games fall into. Looking great, but playing poorly. And this is where the real genius of Donkey Kong Country kicks in. Because the magic wasn't how it looked, more importantly, it was how it moved. The first thing you'd notice when you start playing is the rhythm. This isn't a floaty, dreamy platformer. It has a distinct and almost bouncy cadence. Jumping on a Kremling has a satisfying thud. Rolling into them gives you the speed boost. The levels are designed so that if you have the timing down, you can chain moves together and just flow through the stage. That's the real secret sauce. The developers were obsessed with making the game feel seamless for a skilled player. They placed obstacles and enemies so that everything could be hit on the first try if you had the reflexes. It's the kind of design that makes speedrunning feel natural, even if that term wasn't really even a thing back then. And let me show you what I mean with the star of the show, the roll move. It's such a simple idea. Press a button to tuck and roll, but it's everything. It's a weapon. It's a speed boost, and you can even jump out of it mid-air to reach hidden areas. Mastering the roll is what separates someone who just gets through the game and from someone who owns it. I rarely used it as a kid, and that was terrible. Now, I can't imagine playing without it. But of course, you're not just rolling. You've got two characters. Donkey is the powerhouse, able to kill bigger enemies with the ground pound. Diddy is faster, nimbler, honestly, the character you'll probably use more. But this tag team mechanic is brilliant. Losing one Kong isn't an instant game over. It adds this little layer of tension without being overly punishing. Okay, now with controls this good, you need levels that put them to the test. And that's where Donkey Kong Country truly earns its stripes. Because just when you think you've seen it all, it throws a new idea at you. One of the biggest marks of a great platformer is how well it can introduce new ideas without overstaying its welcome. Super Mario World is a masterclass in this, and so is Donkey Kong Country. You've got your standard jungle level, sure, but then you're blasting out of a barrel in a minecart, trying not to fall into the abyss. You're navigating a shipwreck and underwater stages with some incredible music, dodging clams that snipe pearls at you. You're swinging on vines, riding rhinos that can break through walls, and even hopping on an ostrich that can let you glide. Every level has its own personality. You get a factory level with moving platforms and toxic waste, a snow level with slippery ice and barrel cannons over bottomless pits. The gameplay twists each time. I don't remember every level name, but I absolutely remember the gimmick of each one. And hidden everywhere are the secrets. Bonus rooms tucked behind false walls, Kong letters spelling out K-O-N-G, and animal buddy tokens. Finding everything gets you a 101% completion rating, which is the game's way of showing off. And as a kid, hunting for these was half the fun. Some are brutally hidden, requiring leaps of faith or spotting subtle banana trails. But they reward the curiosity that this world inspires. But seriously, let's be real. This game is not easy. It assumes you know how to play a platformer. The screen can feel a little cramped sometimes, with DK's big sprite blocking the view, leading to some cheap hits. The later levels, especially like the Snow Barrel Blast or the factory stages, demand precision. It's the kind of challenge that makes a victory feel earned, not handed to you. And powering you through all that challenge is one of the most legendary soundtracks ever put on a cartridge. If you've ever played this game, you're probably humming the tune right now. David Wise's score is a character in itself. He built these atmospheres. The aquatic ambience of the water levels is haunting and beautiful. The tribal percussion of the jungle themes gets you pumped. The factory music is industrial, intense. Wise was working with the Super Nintendo's limited sound chip, but he treated it like an instrument. He'd write actual lyrics for each melody to get the phrasing right, even though no one would ever hear them. He mixed in environmental sounds, synth, and genres from jazz to rock to create something remarkable that really made you get the feeling of each level. And this one reason is actually the biggest reason I'll always pick the original Super Nintendo version over the later Game Boy Advance port. The GBA version added some cool content, like new minigames and cutscenes, But the sound chip butchered the tracks. They lost their depth in the atmosphere. For a game where the music is that important, I'm sorry, that's a deal breaker for me. The Super Nintendo soundtrack, in my mind, is untouchable. And it all builds to that final showdown with King K. Rool, or King Cruel, however you say it. The music shifts. The fake-out ending gets you. It's a perfect capstone. Beating him for the first time is a core gaming memory for me. It felt like a real accomplishment. So why does Donkey Kong Country still hold up? Put the nostalgia aside, and we're talking about how its fundamentals are rock solid. The controls are tight and rewarding. The level variety keeps you engaged. The exploration for secret rewards. And the presentation, from its groundbreaking pre-rendered graphics to its perfect soundtrack, creates a world that's just so easy and fun to get lost in. And for a guy like me, and maybe like you, it's a perfect escape. It proved that a classic character could come back stronger than ever and set the standard for an entire series. What are your feelings about Donkey Kong Country? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. And if this retro throwback hit the spot, then hitting that like button is the best way to let me know. If you want more deep dives into the games that defined our childhoods, make sure you're subscribed. Next time, we might just take a look at what happened when Diddy Kong took the lead for his own quest. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Let's talk about a sequel that had to fight for its reputation from day one. By 1994, Street Fighter II had already given us Turbo's blistering speed. So when Super Street Fighter II hit the Super Nintendo with a slower pace and 4 new faces, it sparked an instant debate. Was this a step back, or the hidden champion of 16-bit fighting? Today, we're not just answering that question, we're seeing if this version, often caught in Turbo's shadow, is actually the best overall in the Street Fighter II series. So let's break down what Capcom was actually trying to do here, because after the blistering speed of Turbo, Super felt like a deliberate step back. The pace is slower, closer to the original Champion Edition. For some of us at the time, that was a bit of a shock, but here's what I mean. This wasn't a downgrade. This was a complete graphical and audio overhaul. Everything got a facelift. The colors are richer. Ryu's stage has deeper blues, and the crowds are more detailed. Every single character portrait and stage got redrawn, and the sound? Completely remade with a new announcer and new voice samples for characters like Ken and Guile. They were pushing the SNES cartridge to its limits with a 32 megabit size. But the real question is, with all this style, did the substance get left behind? Check this out. The big selling point was right there in the subtitle, The New Challengers. 4 new characters. Cammy, the speedy British Spec Ops stunner with a mysterious link to M. Bison. DJ, the always smiling kickboxer from Jamaica. T-Hawk, the powerhouse from Mexico. And Fei Long, Hong Kong's answer to Bruce Lee. This brought the roster to 16 fighters, which felt absolutely massive back then. But here's what most players miss. Adding 4 new characters isn't just about more options. It's a balancing nightmare, and that's where Super Street Fighter II gets really interesting. Now, let's talk about the invisible stuff, the changes you felt but maybe couldn't articulate as a kid. This is where the deep dive gets good. Capcom was refining a formula they'd already perfected. Every returning character got tweaked. Ryu got a fiery red Hadouken. Shoryuken! They were fine-tuning the balance across the entire cast to accommodate the new fighters. But the single most important addition, the one that changed fighting games forever, was hiding in plain sight on the HUD, the combo counter. This seems standard now, but in 1994, this was a revelation. Seeing those hit numbers pop up officially, tracking your reversals and recoveries with bonus points, it transformed how we played. It wasn't just about winning the round anymore, it was about style. It pushed you and your friend on the couch to discover those brutal, beautiful combinations. It turned a fight into a performance. Okay, so the game taught us to chase combos, but here's the tricky part. With the slower speed compared to Turbo, those combos felt different, heavier, more deliberate. It created a split in the fan base that still exists today. Are you Team Turbo or Team Super? The slower speed was a creative choice, and it gave Super its own unique identity. Now, getting the arcade experience to run on your Super Nintendo at home was a magic trick, and Capcom mostly nailed it. This port is a fantastic time capsule. It even added new modes like Group Battle and Time Attack. They also included adjustable speed settings, so if you missed the turbo pace, you could crank it back up. It was the most comprehensive package yet, but here's where it gets even more interesting. There were tiny, weird differences between the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis versions. The Genesis cart was actually bigger, 40 megabits, and had extra voice lines from the announcer. The Super Nintendo version, because of Nintendo's strict policy at the time, also had to replace the blood in the character portraits with sweat. Okay. Playing it today, the SNES port feels like the definitive version. The music, despite stopping between rounds, is iconic. The controls are tight, especially with Capcom's own 6-button fighter pad. It was the third best-selling game in Japan in 1994. But this creates a new problem. With so many versions available now, HD re-releases, the 30th Anniversary Collection, why go back to this specific one? Look, it's not about nostalgia, it's about context. The SNES port represents the absolute peak of 2D pixel art fighting on 16-bit hardware. They maxed it out. When you play it, you're seeing the end of an era, right before 3D and the Saturn versions changed everything. It's a self-contained, complete experience. No day one patches, no online meta to chase. Just pure, refined mechanics that have aged incredibly well because they're built on fundamentals. You can pick it up, have a few intense matches, and put it down feeling satisfied. It definitely respects your limited time. But here's something else we often overlook. Super Street Fighter II was quietly laying the groundwork for the modern era. Think about it. The refined balance, the official combo counter tracking your performance, the expanded roster creating more complex matchups. These weren't just updates, they were the first crucial steps towards the deeply competitive, spectator-friendly design that would define the series. The path from meticulously learning Super's matchups in your living room to watching million-dollar tournaments for Street Fighter VI starts right here. This game helped teach players to think like professional competitors. And here's the final point. Super Street Fighter II is a bridge. It took the chaotic energy of Turbo, polished it, expanded it, and tried to balance it. It directly set the stage for the masterpiece that is Super Street Fighter II Turbo. So while the debate between the OG versions of Turbo and Super will rage on forever, this version's legacy is secure. It gave us iconic new characters, it taught us to chase the combo, and it delivered a near-perfect piece of the arcade to our living rooms. So, was it worth it riding your bike over to Blockbuster Video to rent it for the weekend back in the day? Absolutely. Does it hold up now? Surprisingly and uncategorically, yes. But I want to know what side you're on. Let's argue about it in the comments like it's 1994 all over again. If you enjoyed this throwback, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more feel-good, retro gaming goodness. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
It's the year 2025, and who on earth hasn't already played the living heck out of the iconic Super Nintendo racer F-Zero? What's even left to be said about this classic? Well, F-Zero is undoubtedly one of the best launch titles ever for a new system, and was released on day one of the Super Nintendo's launch in 1991. In this video, we're going to look back at why it's considered by many to be one of the greatest retro games of all time, why it's still playing today, and how it influenced future generations of racing games that followed. So sit back and buckle up as we reminisce about the breakneck speed and sublime gameplay in this Retro Gaming Boss review of the original F-Zero. F-Zero introduced a futuristic racing experience set in the high-speed world of anti-gravity hovercraft racing. The game allows players to sprint across vibrant, twisting tracks at blistering speeds, offering an exhilarating gameplay experience that stood out amongst other racing titles at the time. This game pushed the Super Nintendo's hardware to its limits, delivering a racing experience that was lightning fast, with perfect gameplay and controls. It was absolutely brimming with innovation. At its core, F-Zero is an arcade-style racing game where players control one of 4 distinctive hovercrafts, each with unique attributes like speed, weight, and handling. F-Zero is a not-so-subtle wordplay on the popular car racing franchise F1, and features 15 challenging tracks, each filled with tight turns and different hazards. The key to success in F-Zero is to keep your speed up at a constant pace, maintain control, and prevent your craft from crashing out or falling behind. This is easier said than done, since your energy meter depletes with each collision, making it crucial to avoid crashes and stay on the track. What makes F-Zero so addictive is the rush of speed and smoothness of control. The game features a racing perspective that gives the player a sense of extreme velocity, and I mean extreme, as in hurtling down the track at over 400 kilometers an hour. I can't think of another game that ever conveyed the illusion of traveling quite so fast, at least in the 16-bit era. I just can't overstate how sensational the game's sense of speed was at the time, and still is. An interesting feature of the Super Nintendo is its hardware acceleration, rotation, and scaling of background layers that's termed Mode 7 graphics. This feature provides a smooth, pseudo-3D effect that makes the tracks appear to be bending and twisting beneath your craft while extending far into the horizon. This new technology was unseen in other early 90s consoles like the Sega Genesis, which had to mimic similar effects in its games using software, which never felt as fluid or fast. Don't get me wrong, the Genesis is an awesome console in its own right, but there's no dispute that the Mode 7 graphics seen in F-Zero set a new high-water mark at the time that made it a white-knuckle thrill ride from start to finish. Prior to F-Zero, I'd never played a console racing game whose controls were so tight and dialed in. While the game's responsive controls make it easy to navigate through the sharp turns and hair-raising jumps, the game's difficulty ramps up quickly, providing a challenge for even the most experienced players. Not many other games balance the fine line between frustration and fun, and maintain it so well throughout the experience. While the first few tracks serve as a warm-up, the later courses require sharp reflexes and precise control to even survive. And if you've played this classic, then you know just how great it feels to be 100% in the zone, having mastered the controls and effortlessly drifting around the corners using the left and right shoulder buttons. The soundtrack of F-Zero adds an energetic, adrenaline-pumping layer to the gameplay. The high-tempo synthesizer music perfectly complements the futuristic setting and high-speed races, keeping you immersed in the action. The sound effects, from the electric buzz of the hovercraft engines to the explosions when you crash into a ball of flames, are spot on and add even more intensity to the experience. Let's take a listen and feel the vibe. For variety, the game offers a choice of 4 playable vehicles, each with distinct characteristics that provide tons of replayability. Whether newbies choose to race in Captain Falcon's superbly balanced craft, the Blue Falcon, more experienced players take on the challenge of piloting the Fire Stingray, which boasts the fastest top speed, but also the slowest acceleration. Each vehicle feels distinct and has its own sweet learning curve. When you enter that moment of becoming one with the craft and finally being able to maximize the strengths of each,
It makes replaying the game so rewarding and a pure delight. On a personal note, back when this first came out, my kid brother was so addicted to this game, when we went on a family vacation, he actually brought our whole Super Nintendo setup along just so he could play this game the entire time. Having that thing set up and available in our hotel room all week was such a treat, and trust me, I was happy to join him. That carefree vacation will always hold a special memory of a simpler time and some happy days in life so long ago.
Excellent!
My guess is some of you might also have some great memories about this game too, so drop a comment about it below to share your thoughts. I'd love to hear about it. So to wrap things up, F-Zero's had an undeniable and long-lasting legacy, influencing the racing genre with its futuristic setting and high-speed gameplay. Its impact can be seen in the later F-Zero sequels exclusive to other Nintendo consoles, and is considered to be the spiritual forerunner of similar futuristic racing games such as the amazing Wipeout series that were released years later. F-Zero's cutting-edge visuals, unforgettable sense of speed, and infinite replayability made it one of the most revered games of the 16-bit generation for good reason. So to those last 3 people remaining on Earth who haven't played this yet, this is a can't-miss experience, even though it's been well over 30 years since it first came out. For you and me who are lucky enough to experience the joy of playing this beauty back in the day, I ask, why not fire up the engines again for a quick nostalgia hit and remind yourself just how good it was and still is today? Whether you play it online or via emulation, or fortunate enough to still own the game on a functioning Super Nintendo, you'll be glad you did. If you like this game and video, then give me a thumbs up and drop a comment below about your favorite memories playing this Nintendo masterpiece. Also be sure to subscribe and support this channel so I can bring you more videos of your favorite retro games. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.